Project Dream was an unreleased video game developed by Rare that unfortunately got cancelled. Initially, it was planned as a game for the Super Nintendo console in the mid-1990s, but later it was transformed into a title for the Nintendo 64 system. Originally, Project Dream was envisioned as a role-playing game with numerous features. However, as the development progressed, it underwent several changes until it eventually evolved into a popular platform game known as Banjo-Kazooie. The story of Project Dream revolved around a young boy named Edson who carried a wooden sword and embarked on adventures with his loyal companions, which was a dog named Dinger and a parrot named Billy. Edson found himself in trouble with a group of pirates who served as a primary antagonist of the game led by Captain Blackeye. The development of Project Dream began around 1994 to 1995, although the exact date is unknown. The game was planned to utilize the advanced computer modeling technique which had been employed successfully in the creation of Donkey Kong Country in 1994. According to the game's composer Grant Kirkhope, who joined the project in October 1995, a demo had already been developed at that time. Kirkhope was highly impressed with the demo, stating that it looked stunning and represented a significant improvement over Donkey Kong Country. However, it was later determined that the Super Nintendo console lacked the necessary power to fulfill the development team's ambitious vision. As a result, the project shifted to the Nintendo 64, the successor of the Super Nintendo. Development of the Nintendo 64 version initially began on the Nintendo 64 disk drive, with the game being transformed into a 3D RPG similar to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which was also under development at that time. The Nintendo 64 version was intended to feature a unique 3D terrain system achieved through polygon stretching. Unfortunately, the processing power of the Nintendo 64 wasn't enough to maintain a smooth frame rate while rendering these environments. During the development process, the team had become aware of another Rare team working on a game called 12 Tales Conquer 64, which was a cute 3D platformer inspired by Super Mario 64. This discovery prompted the team to change direction and incorporate platforming elements with RPG elements in their game. Additionally, the main protagonist Edson was considered too generic, leading the team to search for a new character concept. Eventually, they settled on a bear initially intended as a secondary character who later became the iconic character Banjo. Ultimately, the entire Project Dream was scrapped and the team started completely over. They incorporated some of the characters from Project Dream into the new and fresh game called Banjo-Kazooie. On December 22, 2015, Rare released a video on the YouTube channel called Rare Revealed: A Rare Look at Dream. This video showcased the development history of Project Dream, including never-before-seen gameplay footage of both the Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 versions of the game, as well as an early prototype of Banjo-Kazooie. As of now, this is all we know of this game, and it's unknown if we'll ever see more of this game in general. Spot Goes to Hollywood is a platform video game that came out in 1995, published by Virgin Interactive for the Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, and PlayStation. This game serves as a sequel to the 1993 release called Cool Spot. A version for the Super Nintendo for this game was being developed. Unfortunately though, it was never released. According to an interview with Ed Magnin, one of the game's programmers, the Super Nintendo version of Spot Goes to Hollywood was fully completed and ready to be approved by Nintendo. However, Virgin Interactive decided to cancel it because they didn't believe they could meet the minimum sales required for that particular version. There were only 2 known prototypes of the Super Nintendo version that still exist. One of them, dated 2014, is considered an early build, as mentioned in a now-deleted post on the NintendoAge.com forum. The other prototype of an unknown date appears to be an incomplete version with noticeable issues like poor or missing enemy AI. Both of these prototypes are not intended to be shared with the general public. But then on July 20th, 2018, a ROM dump of an early prototype was released by SNES Central, making it accessible for everyone to download. Sports 5 was an unlicensed sports compilation game that was in development for the Sega Genesis but was ultimately cancelled. The game was being created by Farsight Technologies and was set to be published by Active Enterprises. Limited information is available regarding the development of Sports 5. Its existence was first revealed when Active Enterprises made an appearance at the 1994 Consumer Electronics Show. The company, known for the NES compilation game Action 52, had listed versions of Sports 5 for both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo on the confidential price list. However, no specific pricing or release date was confirmed when the list was finalized on June 1st, 1993. Following the release of the NES version of Action 52, Active Enterprises enlisted the help of Farsight Technologies to develop their games. This partnership included a released version of Action 52 for the Genesis and possibly an unreleased SNES version, as well as the development of Sports 5. In an interview with Jay Obernault, a developer at Farsight Technologies, it was confirmed that the company had indeed worked on the compilation game for the Genesis, although no mention was made of a Super Nintendo port. As suggested by its title, Sports 5 was intended to feature 5 different sports games, but the specific sports included in the compilation remain unknown. According to Obernault, the development had progressed to a point where the game was barely even playable. However, the relationship between Farsight Technologies and Active Enterprises drifted apart, leading to the cancellation of Sports 5's development. Although Obernault confirmed the existence of Sports 5, No builds, footage, or images of the game have resurfaced publicly. Nevertheless, Orbinault's confirmation of a Genesis build being in progress, combined with the fact that another cancelled Active Enterprises game called Cheetah Men 2 had recovered copies, raises the possibility that a prototype of Sports 5 might actually exist. Toxic Crusaders was a Super Nintendo game that was in development by Bandai in 1992 but ultimately got cancelled. It was intended to be accompanied by NES and Game Boy versions, all based on the popular Saturday morning cartoon series of the same name from the early 1990s. In this game, players would play the role of Toxie, who was a mutated leader of the superhero group known as the Toxic Crusaders. Toxie's mission was to confront his arch-enemy Dr. Killamoff, as well as his henchmen Psycho and Bonehead. The game would feature additional enemies such as aggressive dogs and birds. Toxie would also explore different locations in Tromaville, including a dump, the streets, the forest, and the sewers, and his primary weapon would be a super mop. The game was showcased at the 1992 Winter CES and was originally scheduled for release in June 1992. However, it faced multiple delays and was pushed back to 1993 and then further to early 1994. Ultimately, only the NES, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy versions of the game were released, while the Super Nintendo version was cancelled for reasons that remain unknown. As of this recording, there are only 8 known screenshots of the Super Nintendo version, with 2 of them actually belonging to the released Sega Genesis game called X Mutants. No prototypes of the Super Nintendo version have resurfaced or become publicly available to this day. Triff the Treasure of the Great West was a Super Nintendo strategy game that was under development by a lesser-known company called Cyclone Incorporated. The game featured art and character design by Suzumu Matsushita. Limited information is available about this game, but it was originally slated for release in December 1992. It was advertised in a few issues of Famitsu magazine, which showcased 4 screenshots from the game. Additionally, it was planned to support the Super Famicom mouse. However, for reasons that remain unknown, the game was ultimately cancelled. However, on October 3rd, 2020, gameplay footage of the game was discovered on a tape from the CSG Fall-Winter 1992 exhibition, providing a first glimpse of the game. Spellcraft is a fantasy strategy game originally developed for MS-DOS by ASCIIware and published by Broderbund in 1992. The game garnered attention and plans were made to port it to the Super Nintendo. Its announcement took place during the Winter CES in January 1992, with the highly anticipated release scheduled for the fall of the following year, as revealed in the May 1993 issue of Nintendo Power. However, for reasons that remain unknown, the Super Nintendo version of Spellcraft was ultimately cancelled. ASCII Corporation and Yabara Productions were the designated developers for the Super Nintendo adaptation. Interestingly, the game's prototype ROM version 1.10a was randomly leaked in August 1993 by the BBS scene group Magical. This leak took place prior to the planned release date in that fall. Furthermore, another prototype ROM labeled as 1.03f was successfully dumped by Cloud and released by Forest Evolution 30 whole years later on February 4th, 2023. This second prototype showcased significant improvements and a higher level of completeness compared to the initial leaked version, providing fans with a more refined glimpse into the game that never officially reached the public. Star Fox 2 was a highly anticipated video game that was in development by Argonaut Software from 1993 to 1995. It was of course intended as a sequel to the popular Super Nintendo game Star Fox. The game promised improvements in texture quality, frame rate, and a new storyline. Development on Star Fox 2 began in February 1993, but details remained unknown until January 1994 when an issue of Gameplays mentioned the use of polygons and the Super FX2 chip for the game. A commercial release was initially expected in the summer of 1995. The game was then publicly showcased at the 1995 Consumer Electronics Show and received positive feedback. And despite rumors and speculation, Star Fox 2 was not displayed at the E3 conference in May 1995. Conflicting reports emerged, with some claiming the game had been quietly cancelled, while others suggested it was delayed and being reworked for Nintendo's upcoming console. Official information about Star Fox 2 came out with a response in the September 1995 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, where it was stated that the game's development had not been halted but offered no release date. However, the promised improvements and a release in the first half of 1996 never materialized, and the game was silently cancelled without an official statement. In a 1999 interview, Dylan Cuthbert, an Argonaut employee involved in the game's development, revealed that Star Fox 2 was technically complete. Various ROMs of the game surfaced online, including an early alpha build leaked around 1999 and a later build discovered in 2002. Despite its cancellation, Star Fox 2 found its way to players to the Super Nintendo Classic console, which included the complete version of the game as an exclusive title. It was then later added to the Nintendo Switch's online Super Nintendo game service in December 2019.